There's a thing involving
Yeah.
a wine sack that is one of the most erotic things I will see in a movie this year.
So last week we brought you these shorts from Wes Anderson on Netflix. Now we have a short from Pedro Almodóvar, which you can go and see in theaters. It's called Strange Way of Life. Alonso's going to tell you about it.
You never loved me. You never loved anyone in your life. Don't say that.
This was, I guess, underwritten by Saint Laurent. So I guess they're doing a like hot cowboy line or something.
I'm here for it.
Sure, bring it. There were some shirts in there. I was like, does that come in a 2X? So yeah, it is a Western, and Pedro Pascal as Silva comes riding across the prairie to a town where Jake, played by Ethan Hawke, is the sheriff. These two have a past. Turns out they have an erotic past, and we meet the younger versions of themselves, played by Jose Condesa and Jason Fernandez. But ultimately, they reach an impasse because Silva's son is on the lam, and Jake is determined to bring him to justice. And so, how will that throw a wrench into their long-standing relationship? This is like, what, 25 minutes long?
31
minutes long. And it's fun to see Almodóvar dig into a genre that he's never done before. And in a way, it's kind of an homage to Sergio Leone, both in like specific kind of shots and edits in the film, but also the fact that Leone shot most, if not all, of his spaghetti westerns in Spain.
Oh, okay.
So they're kind of part of like Spanish cinematic heritage, even when they were made by Italian or American filmmakers. And, you know, Pascal and Hawke have really dynamite chemistry. You know, they are playing these kind of Western archetypes, but at the same time, they're like super into each other. So that's a cool combo. My only complaint about this movie is that it leaves you wanting it to be a feature. It doesn't feel like a lot of short films, like whoop, you know, they close the loop and it's like, yes, that's exactly as long as it needed to be, and bam, that's all we needed. But this feels like you're getting a taste of a feature that doesn't exist.
Right.
And I don't know that I walked away from this feeling like I had had a full satisfactory experience. It just sort of felt like, and then what? Then what happens? You know?
Yeah.
But what's there is churse.
Yeah. So also because it's a short, they have to cram in a lot of exposition to explain what this relationship
past.
was like, right? And so they have to say things like, you know, we talked about starting a ranch together, right? You know, the things that maybe like might have just developed a little more naturally, like allusions to what that was like before we get a flashback, as you mentioned, to what their first early tryst was like 25 years earlier. And maybe you don't need that. Like, I think the two of them in the present day indicate so much longing,
Sure, and regret.
physically and emotionally. Like from the very first second that Pedro Pascal walks into that sheriff station and they see each other, the way that Almodóvar has like a close up on each of them reacting to the other, like it's just heavy. It's heavy with like longing and regret and wanting each other and missing each other, because they're both so good. They're both so good individually. They have amazing chemistry with each other. I don't mind the flashback because it's fun and playful and sexy. And
there's a thing involving a wine sack that is one of the most erotic things I will see in a movie this year.
Wine sack, people. Remember that. Yeah, no, that's interesting though, because in that scene, they're at first trying to play at what masculinity is supposed to look like and sound like. And then eventually it's like, we can't help ourselves.
Yeah, screw it.
You're beautiful and I'm beautiful and we're a little drunk. So
it's happening.
Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that it's underwritten by Saint Laurent, and that's, you know, who did the costume design here. So part of me does kind of feel like, is this like a half-hour commercial? And is that kind of gross? I don't know.
I mean, it's not unheard of for fashion houses to create short films. I mean, a lot of times when I'm at like at Venice, they'll have like in years past they've had like a section of shorts directed like all women filmmakers by like, you know, Miranda July and you know, I forget who else, and they'll all be sort of like from Miu Miu, you know, and but they don't necessarily like feature outfits from there, which this movie does. But I never felt like that I never felt like that Almodóvar's vision was compromised by like, oh no, I have to showcase this duster, like it felt organic to the thing, like it is Western wear. And so it wasn't like the costume sort of stole focus for me ever, but they are pretty great,
And it's so his style though, with like the primary color palette.
Sure.
Right. It's so him with like the red and the blue and the green, like it's muted in sort of a hazy kind of brushed Western vibe, but still like those colors that we associate, like the bright, vibrant colors of his usual palette, they all exist here. And Alberto Iglesias did the score, who is his frequent composer. So it feels so much like an Almodóvar film, and the melodrama, of course, which is inherent to this. Like the stakes are so high. Ethan Hawke is the sheriff, but it's a lawless place essentially. And there's violence and there's passion and all of that. All those heightened feelings are so Almodóvar.
Yeah.
So.
You also get Caetano Veloso playing the blind guitar player early on, and that singer, he's a legendary singer. He of course has a cameo, a memorable appearance in Talk to Her. Anthony Vaccarello, we should mention, is the guy who actually designed the costumes for the House of Saint Laurent. So this is going out into theaters, coupled with another short that Almodóvar did during the pandemic, or during the early years of the pandemic, called The Human Voice, which is, based on the play and starring Tilda Swinton. It was his first English language anything. So this Jean Cocteau play, which has an interesting history with Almodóvar, because Carmen Mauro was in a stage production of The Human Voice, which is a one-woman show of a woman waiting for her lover to call because she knows she wants confirmation that it's over between them. Carmen Mauro was in a production of Human Voice in Madrid that was wildly acclaimed. Almodóvar wanted to film that, but he wanted to flesh it out to a feature film. And as he fleshed it out to a feature film, along the way, it became a farce, and it became Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown.
Ah, okay.
But the root of it, the whole phone call thing, is very much central to that film. So here he's doing it straight up, although in English and with kind of a modern touch, and with some moments that like are telling you, I shot this during lockdown, where like, Swinton's character kind of goes for a walk around the set of the apartment, so like they don't have to go outside, and it's very, they're not trying to hide it in any way. It's like, it is exactly what it looks like. And it was great. I love that one as well. So like getting to see these two together on the big screen, I think will be really exciting.
I thought it was cool too. I remember seeing it and thinking like the apartment that she's in so resembles the apartment that Antonio Banderas' character lives in Pain and Glory.
Totally. Yes.
Like down to like the artwork and just the layout of it. I'm like, is this the same set? It looks a lot like it. Doesn't she leave at some point to go buy a hammer?
She does. An axe. She goes to a hardware store, and the guy she buys it from is Agustin Almodóvar, who is like Pedro's brother and his producer. So it's like they were really keeping it to as few people as possible, But yeah, even that scene is like she handles the axe like it was a bouquet of flowers. It's really kind of beautifully put together. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. Obviously, one might argue that I'm cosplaying him, but I think both of these films really kind of touch on the stuff that you love about his movies, from the way they look to the way they make you feel and the way that his characters behave. And so yeah, this is a really exciting opportunity to go see two short films from one of our greatest living directors.
I agree. Let's not give them numbers.
Nah, just go see them.